The fact that it can be measured and it should be actionable insight, and people in execution remain pivotal even for future. So I think, can we give him a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen? At this juncture, I'd like to invite Mr. Umesh Revankar, Executive Vice Chairman of Shriram Finance Limited, revered figure in the financial industry. Mr. Revankar, I think we are very curious to hear from you. Please join us.
Good evening, friends. Thanks, Alok, for inviting me and other dignitaries on the dais. Friends, I just like to highlight on the NBFC industry because BFSI is very broad. I'd like to narrow down on NBFC, how NBFC is playing very important, useful role in Indian economy because NBFC per se, this may not be visible in most of the advanced countries. In advanced country, don't have non-banking finance company. There may be para-banking, there may be credit societies, other form of so-called shadow banking systems. But NBFC is something which is very typical to India. And the contribution of the NBFC to the Indian economy has been very significant. If you look at the credit, current credit to the industry on people, it forms around 18 to 20% of the credit outflow presently. That means it plays very important role in growth. Why it is very important is if the GDP growth of the country is around 7%, the typically banking industry, if you look at, they grow around 12 to 14%. And for the economy to grow, you need around 2.5% to 3%, 2.5 to 3 times of the our GDP for the growth. So that means there is a gap between what bank can lend and what the economy needs. There is always a gap. And that gap is typically filled by the NBFC. So NBFC took this opportunity to reach out to the people who needs credit. And that's how the NBFC industry started in India. And many of the companies have grown large and big. Some of them are start and young. And some of them are new emerging companies have come, which is fintech-based lending companies. So there are different models have been functioning. People do complain, there are 9,000 companies, what all these companies do? Do we need so many different companies? You just look at the US. US has nearly 7,000 banks. And 20% of the US population still do not have credit access. And India has around 80% of the people do not have credit access, in the sense from the banks. So they do need a different source of formal and informal credit system for their businesses or for their activities. That's how the NBFCs play a very important role. So number of NBFCs, the count is not very important, but how and when they reach out to individual credit needs of the people is very important. Whether it is enterprise loan, whether it is individual requirement, or it is acquisition of asset. One of the most important requirement in a society is acquisition of assets, because that plays very important role in the person's life. Whether you are acquiring a house, a roof for your living, or whether you are acquiring any assets like machinery, maybe vehicle, it could be lathe machine, anything for creating a sustainable income. These kind of the requirement can be met by only NBFCs because NBFCs are spread across the country. They are in all form and size. They are specialized. They can reach out to the needy and create that kind of a niche segment for them and and fulfill the requirement of a credit of individuals. Now, whether the next step is whether we can reach to all these customers through the AI or digital mode, or whether we can create better reach through them. I think, yes, India is on the way in the sense, today, basic KYC happens on the mobile. Once a KYC is done on a mobile, then you are on digital platform. Because your PAN is linked, your Aadhaar is linked, your mobile number is linked to everything, to bank account. You are in a digital world when you acquire a customer, when you onboard a customer. So you are in that particular platform. Then onwards, whatever the data available through various methods can become a form of an algorithm or form of a credit rule engine for doing various lending. So it has become so easy with high penetration of mobile for all individuals, because right from the age 10 or 12, most of the young people have now mobile. So the behavior of a customer over the period can be captured, and it can become a tool to extend credit to each and every individual who owns a mobile. That's the kind of reach we can create. But whether, if that is the case, whether only banks is sufficient to reach out and give the credit, I feel there you need a lot of different tools and people for a different set of a customer to understand and lend. So therefore, I think NBFCs are going to play a very, very important role right from the various enterprise business requirement, even for personal requirement. In between, if you would have observed in the last maybe 1 year, there has been a statement that the loan for personal consumption or loan for speculation is something need to be curtailed, and it is going out of or beyond the comfort of the regulator. That's, I think, in a way, regulator is right. They need to have some kind of a control, some measure to see where the need of or the use of money is going to be what to call used, in the sense it cannot keep on having a leveraging impact. A person should not get into debt trap. So that there is a responsibility of the regulator, and we being a responsible lenders, all of us, we need to also see that a customer need to be advised, because everyone may not be financially literate to understand the implication of borrowing, and that's where the NBFC industry have to play an important role. Then the other factor that keeps raising is whether NBFC can raise resources on its own, because in general it is felt that NBFCs are over-dependent on bank. Are they over-dependent? Whether they are capable of raising resources from other markets. That's where I feel the NBFC industry has to evolve and find out different sources of raising resources. There is enough market. There is capital market. Of course, capital market reforms need to be there. The market today is little shallow, so it doesn't have enough depth. There are no market makers. Therefore, it becomes a little challenging sometimes to float the bonds. The corporate bond in India, in general, are little shallow. So that need to be developed. That will help the NBFC industry. You can also raise resources, larger NBFC can resources through the ECB market, and of course, Mr. Haribhakti talked about green bond. There's so many other sources that is going to come. If you are specialized yourself into financing sustainable, what to call green green financing options. There are several green financing options available that probably some of the NBFC can specialize and raise resources that is available in the international market. That is something I feel we can do. We can also partner with the bank in a co-lending model and increase your presence. Mr. Sachindranath may be interested in talking about it. Here, we are not giving any service to bank. We are just co-partnering with the bank with sharing of risk. So that is something you are making bank more accessible, or customer more accessible to banking funds. That is something which we can look at. So there are so many things, I think NBFC, even I think in increasing the financial literacy, NBFC can play a very important role. Whether it is a protection policies like insurance policies, whether it is investment products, to reach out to the people. Because even though mutual fund industry is growing, insurance industry is growing, India's penetration or India's investment into financial asset is much, much lower than the international standards. So there needs to be a large, big attempt by everyone to make it happen so that the prosperity spreads. There has to be democratization of credit, and the prosperity need to be spread among large number of people so that the country becomes very prosperous. So I think the NBFC industry has a big role to play and will continue to play that role. With these few words, I thanks again for the organizer for inviting me.